So in this video, I am just going to go over the many different types of transportations that you can take while in Kenya. They had planes, trains, automobiles, they had ships, chips and dips. They had just everything, like things I haven't even seen before. So I'm just going to go over the transportations that I was taking while I was in Kenya. All right, y'all, this is gonna be a voiceover because this was my first time in Kenya. I was so excited and I did not want to miss a thing. Now, I actually took this video when we came back, and this was at the airport in New York. So I took this when we came back, not when we went there, but when we got back to America. It was just so cute because this is like a waterfall with the colors, and it actually had music too, but of course I can't play that music, but the music went with like the waterfall and the theme of the lighted pictures, and it was just, I ain't never seen nothing like that, and I thought that was cute, so that's why I recorded it. So anyways, let me tell you how when we went there, how we almost missed our plane flight. So before we got to New York, our connecting flight, the plane was late getting to New York because the flight attendant for our connecting plane flight was late getting to, the doors so that we can leave to get to New York. So our plane was late to New York because of a flight attendant was late. So we literally had no time when we got to New York to get to our plane because, like I said, our plane was late getting to New York. There was actually like some lady checking clearance and checking tickets to make sure that the people who had tickets, who had planes that were, immediately leaving, she was making sure that those people got through the clearance faster than, the others, just so that people weren't missing their flights. But somehow we got missed in that clearance too. We were missed somehow. Anywho, we literally had to run from one end of that airport. If you know how big that airport is, it is huge. It's New York. It was a huge airport. We literally had to run from one end to the other so that we did not miss our plane ticket, we didn't miss our plane flight. We were so close to missing that flight. Anyway, everybody was boarded when we got there, but we did end up making it, so that's good. So the first means of transportation, of course, is the plane. And then actually while we were in Kenya, we did take another plane because we had to take another plane to get to the countryside. So I don't know if they had like a little field trip this day, but all the little kids in their little burgundy, they were just so cute. But anywho, this is at the airport that we had to go to get to the countryside. We needed to take a plane. Now, you can get to the countryside without taking a plane, but it was going to take like 10 hours or something ridiculous to go by train. And ain't nobody got time for that. Like, we literally did not have time to be taking 10-hour train. No, who about to do that? Not me. So we didn't do that. So we did take a plane. This was the first time that I took a small aircraft plane like this. I never taken a small plane like this prior to this time. Now, these are not big planes at all. These are not like the airport big planes because literally they don't need big planes for people that are going to different parts of, different countrysides, basically. So there was not a lot of people going to where we were going. So of course you don't need a huge plane for that. So once we are in the air though, another thing is that you're able to see, from above, you're able to see the landscape of Kenya. So this is our airplane that we are taking, and then we literally were like, we were like the first ones on the plane. So you'll be able to see like how big inside this plane or how small the plane is actually is, because it's not, like I said, it's not big at all. This is literally, the people that are waiting to get in. There's not going to be like a lot of people in here at all. So this was my first small plane ride, so that was fun. Now this was actually pretty interesting because although you can see it looks like it's going slow on video, when you actually looked out the window, it was going pretty fast. So it looks like it's going, that's why I zoomed in. I'm like, whoa, that is so crazy, because once you looked out the actual window and not through the camera, it was going pretty fast. It was not going that slow like it looks on camera. So that was pretty interesting. And this is the takeoff. Now, I would say I noticed the takeoff was kind of different than when you're on a bigger plane. It was just more like, I don't know, like lighter, I guess. I don't know. I can't explain it, but it did feel different taking off in a smaller plane than taking off in a bigger plane. Now here is a different type of landscape than what you just seen. What you just seen was basically like, you know, grassland or whatever. Now it's like a forest. So just to be clear, we have just went miles of just this forest, and I'm just showing you a little snippet. So I'm wondering why there are no gorillas in Kenya, because once again, we went through miles of this forest and there's no gorillas or any jungle animal for that matter. Because at the end of the day, when the day must end, a gorilla family could live comfortably here in Kenya's forest. But there's no gorillas, and there's no jungle animals. There's no tigers, or there's no anacondas. There's none of that. But as much forest as we just passed, I don't know why, but there isn't. Now this was pretty neat. I just thought it reminded me of a dolphin. So that was pretty cool to see, you know, up in the sky. It kind of reminded me of those, what do you call them? Those crop circles. Is that what they're called? Those crop circles that people thought aliens were making them or whatever. But yeah, that's what that reminded me of. It was kind of like refreshing coming to the countryside to see all these trees, because, you know, in the city side or the other parts, it's just grassland, so you don't get to see all this greenery. So coming from a country where you do see all this greenery, and then coming to Nairobi where you don't see all this, coming to this countryside was kind of refreshing, to say the least. The next means of transportation was Ubers. Now, we decided to just take the Ubers around the city of Nairobi because it was just easier to take an Uber than the other means of transportation at the time. Just to see different areas of Nairobi, it was just easier to do the Ubers. Here you can just see how congested the traffic is in Kenya. There's not really any street lights or stop signs or anything. You're just driving. If anyone just cuts off in front of you, I mean, they're driving. There's not really any, you know, lines or anything like that when you're driving in Kenya. So you need to really know how to be driving in that country to get around safely in the city. Now coming up here, you're gonna see where like a black vehicle right there tried to like get over in, you know, our lane. Look, listen, I will have so much road rage if I was to be driving in Kenya, because what are you doing? Like, But literally that's driving. Like, there is no lines to separate, you from the other lane. It's just so crazy the way they drive there. I couldn't do it. My road rage meter, it would be so high up there. Like, no, I couldn't. So once again, there are other means to get around the city besides, a car, vehicle, but using an Uber from coming out a little outside the city to coming inside the city was just easier for us to travel that way rather than one of the other options. Now coming up here on the side is what you would call a matatu. Now with these matatus, we did not ride any of these in the city. We did ride one in the countryside and it was so packed in there, I was not able to get a video. Now these matatus is like the city bus, basically on steroids. They have loud music, they have big speakers, they have TVs. They soup them up to be like a party bus basically. But we were not able to get a video of that because we did not take that in the city. We just rode our Uber, and the only matatu we took was in the countryside, and it was packed, and it was not like a matatu that's in the city side. Let's just say that. It's not souped up like that. It's just really packed when you're taking one in the countryside versus taking one in the city side. So those are another option when in the city, but when you are on a time crunch, it's just best to take an Uber because, like I said, those are like city buses where they make multiple stops. If you want to be comfortable and want to get to point A and point B, in a certain amount of time, just take your Uber. You're not going to be making multiple stops. You're going to be comfortable. You don't have this loud speaker in the back of your head banging loud music. You're just going to be more comfortable in an Uber. Unless you're not, crunching for time, then go ahead and experience taking a matatu because, like I said, it's a party bus. So go ahead and experience that as well if you have time. Now just take notice on the right hand side of all that traffic going in one direction. So we really just went to different areas of Kenya, and when you have an Uber driver and you build a relationship with them, you're able to call them up the next day and say, hey, we want to see this area, or hey, we want to go see that area. You're able to build that relationship up with your Uber driver and just call them when you need a ride. If they're obviously not having another patron, then it's just easier when you're able to have a personalized basically chauffeur that can get you from one area to the next, and you don't have to call multiple Ubers, and you don't have to deal with multiple people. Obviously you're going to want to find that Uber driver that you can trust and that is friendly or whatever, and build a relationship with that one Uber driver instead of, like I said, calling and dealing with multiple Uber drivers and multiple people. Another good reason why it's best to take a Uber, especially if you're just, visiting a country for the first time. If you do find that Uber driver that's friendly, and that you built a relationship with, you're able to ask about, certain landmarks that you may see or just certain areas. They're not going to be like, oh, well, stop asking me these weird questions. They're not going to be, anything like that. They're going to be happy to answer your questions because, like I said, you have already built that relationship with them. so now we're going to get into our next means of transportation while in Kenya, and it's going to be right there, and that is called a boda boda. Now, what he just did was show you why it's a better route to just take a boda boda than a Uber. It's because you can get through traffic jams like this one here. As you see, those boda bodas are just going in and out, and they're able to do that because they are basically like on a motorcycle where they are able to go in and out instead of just having to stay in the traffic jam. Now, this is also a good point to point out how the Kenyan roads do not have lines to separate one traffic direction from the other. So that is how this traffic jam occurred, because if you are behind a slow car and say you're trying to get over and get in front of that slower car or whatever, there's no lines to separate one side from the other. So then people are just doing what you see here. There's people going in just different directions, every other directions. And of course, these are big, working trucks that are carrying, people, as you see in that one, and they're just carrying dirt or whatever they have in the back of their truck. These are big trucks that need to get through, and they can't get through because people are just going any direction they feel like going. So you even see these gentlemen walking off. It looks like they said the hell with it, like they ain't about to wait for this, because these traffic jams can last minutes, hours, who knows, because people are just doing their own thing, going their own way. And so that's just going to jump us into our next means of transportation, which you see there is a boda boda, just getting around the traffic jam. And, those are, like I said, a good reason why to take a boda boda rather than taking an Uber, because you don't have to wait in these traffic jams like this. You can easily get around them. I just wanted to show this part and how crazy the traffic is here, how crazy it can get here. This traffic jam, it could have all been avoided if there were lines. For one, lines to show which lane you should be in, because as you can see, everybody is just trying to get around everybody, and just there's no organization when it comes to driving, and this is just the backup behind us. It's just ridiculous. It could all be avoided. It could have all been avoided with just simple lines in the road. Alright, so now we're going to get into the next means of transportation. Once again, it's boda bodas. Now, these are basically taxi motorcycles. We did not take them in the city, but we did take them in the country. Now, once again, a good reason why to take a boda boda in the city is, as you've seen, they're able to get around those traffic jams and don't have to sit there and wait until the traffic jam clears up on its own. We took it in the countryside, and it's also a good thing to take in the countryside because, as you can see, these dirt roads can get really muddy in the wet season. This is just basically mud. I'm not sure how a car would get through the mud if it's stuck, or even these areas, there's some bushy areas, so I'm not even sure how a car would get through some of these bushy areas, but we did take a boda boda through the countryside, and it was good to take because, once again, some of these areas I'm not sure a car would be able to even get through. Now, y'all, we were riding 3 deep on this boda boda. This was the first time I was so close to somebody I didn't know. I'm like, oh, maybe I should take you on a date or something. But anywho, that's a boda boda. All right, now the next one is the choo-choo. It's the train. So the train, we took the train from Nairobi to the place where we did our little safari at our resort. And we also took it to Mombasa. All right, so when I got on this train, I'm like, Lord, I'm about to take a nap because this is about to be a boring train ride. Anyways, after we got out of the hustle and bustle of Nairobi, we are basically ended up being on the outside of the Nairobi National Park. So this train ride basically ran through the whole length of Nairobi National Park, and we were able to see wildlife, the landscape, the geography of Kenya from a different angle, basically from foot, without having to, basically walk. So it was nice to see, wildlife and things like that from the train, because like I said, I'm thinking, Lord, why I get on this train? It's gonna take forever. It's gonna be boring. I was about to take a nap, but then once we started passing, this area here, I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. May see some aminals out there, So that kind of woke me up, and then I just started basically looking for the animals, even though this train, it may not look like it's going fast, or maybe it does look like it's going fast. Anywho, it was going, pretty fast, but you were still able to, capture animals, while we were riding by. Now, seeing these mountains or hills or whatever you want to call them was exciting, at least for me, because it's just a different take on the landscape that you would think, a safari plainland would look like. There's some mountains and some hilltops like that. But here on the left-hand side, you will also be able to see some of the animals, which was the exciting part about riding on the train. Now here you can just see like some farms and little communities where people have built their lives around their crops and things like that, just somewhere further away from the city where people have built their life. Now this just looks like another small community outside the main city, which is the capital city, Nairobi. So this looks just like another small community here as well. All right, y'all. So now it's time to get into the exciting things. Like I said, seeing the landscape and these hills or mountains or whatever was exciting for me, but I know y'all been waiting for me to show y'all when I actually was able to capture some animals. Like we did see some animals along the way, but because of how fast the train was moving, I was not able to snap a picture, let alone you probably seen them throughout the video, but I'll be able to actually snap some pictures and video here, coming up here, where the animals are closer to the window rather than the ones that were further away from the windows where you probably weren't able to even see them from the camera view, but we were able to see them actually from the train. right, we have arrived by train to our resort to do our safari. The next means of transportation are called tuk-tuks. Now, what I like about tuk-tuks, besides their name, is that they are smaller in size compared to a vehicle, but they're just kind of like motorcycles, only they have 3 wheels instead of just 2. So for like your elderly, citizens that, can't get onto a motorcycle or something, a tuk-tuk will be a perfect alternative for those elderly, citizens and things like that. So these are tuk-tuks, and we did actually get inside of one, and this is just basically inside of a tuk-tuk and how it is riding on the streets in Kenya on a tuk-tuk. Now I believe this was in Mombasa. I believe we were in Mombasa in this tuk-tuk. I don't know. I think we are. Anywho, that's a tuk-tuk. The next means of transportation are the ships. Now this was just a sea of my beautiful melanated people just coming onto this ship. So this is basically a ship from Mombasa, from one side to the next, and basically, it's a free ride to the other side. So you get your peoples on there, and you also have cars and vehicles that are also able to ride on these ships as well. So here you will be able to see, it's a flood of people just ready to come onto the ship to get to the other side, basically. Now here you will see the cars are loading in on the bottom here. And then usually they'll do the cars first, and then the people will go on the top of the ship deck. So here's cars loading up. And then here we are loading off inside of the car, getting off of the ship. Like I said, we are inside of a car, getting off of the ship, and we are at the bottom. And then they load people up at the top of the ship as well. Alright, so that is going to conclude my video of the means of transportation here in Kenya. There is one final means of transportation, and that of course was the safari van. We did stay at the resort and they did take us on a safari. That video will be posted at the end of this video, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell so that you don't miss the next notification of when I post my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.